Right, year 10, we're going to make a tiny low poly sword. So it's not going to have a whole lot of triangles on it. It's going to probably have about 200, which is pretty low poly. Be suitable for like a cute little Zelda style game. And we're going to delete the cube. And we're actually going to start by adding in an icosphere. And this icosphere, I'm going to turn the subdivisions down to 1. That's going to be the pommel of our sword. I'm going to actually move it down a little bit because we'll get that out of the way. Then I'm going to add in a mesh, and it's going to be a cylinder. I'm going to turn this down to about 8. And you'll see why shortly. And then I'm going to go into edit mode. Now, currently we've just been working in object mode, moving objects around, adding primitive shapes, but now we're going to go into edit mode. And edit mode is up the top here, edit mode. A lot of these other things, you might be tempted to click on them. I'm sure that you will, but just be aware that they don't do what you probably think they do. Especially when you get into vertex paint and weight paint, you probably play around with them and go, oh, I'm painting stuff, but it doesn't quite work that way. And a lot of them are more complicated than what we'll get up to in year 10. But we do want to be in object mode. You can quickly switch between edit mode and object mode by pushing tab, and that will switch between them. You'll know you're in edit mode because you'll get a whole lot of extra tools down the bottom here. It will say edit mode up the top here, and you will also get these 3 selection bits here. This means select a vertex, and a vertex is any one of these points here. Currently I'm in vertex mode, that's why I can see the vertices. This is edge mode. Now I can select an edge, and this is face mode. I can select a face. You can shift click on all 3 of these, which means you can select either vertices, edges, or faces, which is actually quite handy. But what I want to do with this is hit A to select everything. Then I'm going to hit S and Z and scale it up. Then I'm just going to hit S and scale it down a little bit, like that. Now, I'm going to make another change to it. There's another tool called a ring cut tool. It's actually called loop cut and slide in Blender, and or edge slide, they've changed it, edge slide. It's down here, but the shortcut key for it is ring cut. You'll see what happens when I click this. No, it doesn't actually do that. They've changed it. I don't want to have that tool selected. I'll just scale that back down. Oh, there it is, loop cut. It is called loop cut, and I can click that, and it's going to put a loop cut in the middle. If I scroll up and down, it doesn't want to work this way, which is why I prefer to do it using the shortcut key, which is Control R. And then I can use the mouse wheel up and down to add multiple cuts to this. I actually only want to add one in this case. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to move it up to about here. I'm going to scale this one out a little bit. So I'm just going to hit S and scale it out like that. Now I'm going to hit tab to go back to object mode, and I'm going to hit G and Z and move that down so that it intersects with the pommel I've got at the bottom. I'm going to add another cube here, add mesh cube. Cube's going to go in there, and I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to scale this along the y-axis. There's a reason I'm doing all my scaling in edit mode now and not in object mode. And it's kind of hard to explain why, so I won't at this stage, but I'll show you later. And in fact, some of you may come across this error in class, but I'll show you shortly why that is an issue. I'm going to do 2 ring cuts here, like this. And then I'm going to select the faces at either end. I'll hold Shift to select multiple faces. I'm going to scale these faces in, but I only want to scale them along the X axis, like that. Now I'm going to scale them along the Z axis, like that. And I'm going to pull them up along the Z axis, so that's GZ, like that there. I might scale the whole object in, so select everything. By the way, A selects everything, double tap it to deselect. I'm going to scale that in a little bit along the x-axis, make it thinner. I don't want to make it too thin so that the handle comes out over it, but I do want to make it quite a bit thinner. All right, hit tab to go back into object mode. You can see we've got a cool little sword handle. It's got a pommel on the bottom. It's got a hilt here, and we could add more detail to that later, which I will do shortly. So add mesh cube. Now this cube here, I'm going to bring it up first, GZ, bring it up to about there. It's going to intersect with the sword a little bit. Go into edit mode. In fact, I'm going to do this outside of edit mode just to demonstrate a problem that will occur if you do it outside of edit mode. So I'm going to do it here. You should do yours in edit mode, but I'm going to go SX, scale that in. So I've got a kind of a blade shape. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select that top bit and pull it up. So GZ, pull that up to about there. GZ, pull it up a little bit more. That's a good kind of height for a sword. And I want to add one more bit at the end. No, actually I don't. I'm going to leave that for now. We'll add some extra ring cuts shortly. Now I'm going to add in a modifier here, and it's going to be called a subdivision surface modifier. You'll see what it's done is it's added this bit here. In fact, the scaling is not going to cause an issue in this bit here. So I will demonstrate at the end of the video why you should scale in edit mode and what scaling in object mode is for. But I'm going to go into edit mode, which I am in, and I'm going to hit Control R and add a ring cut right in the middle, but I'm going to pull it down all the way down to the bottom. And you'll see that it flattens that out. This bit here doesn't look too great though, so I'm going to add another ring cut and kind of bring it up. So I get this kind of little cartoony style sword. I can bring that up a little bit more, GZ, and I get this cartoon style sword. Now I'll scale that up a little bit more here, and that's looking pretty good. So from here, what we can do is we can start adding some materials to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the material panel over here, and I'm going to add a new material, and this material is going to be called sword blade. I do not want to just add material 1, 2, 3, 4. You will need to name these properly. Now this stuff down here is all really fancy stuff, and we'll get to it shortly, but we're going to need to switch over to material or viewport shading up here. You can hit Z and switch to material preview, and that will give you a preview of your materials. Currently it's just set to white. Now you can change the base color of this. I'm going to make the sword blade a lot darker, and I'm also going to make it very metallic, not too metallic, and highly specular. That means very reflective. I'm going to turn the roughness of it down, and the more roughness it comes down on it, you'll see that it starts to reflect this kind of, it looks like trees. That's because it is trees. There is a default scene world that's set up here, and you can change that and get some different effects. Now these won't show up if I was to import it into a game or whatnot. You'll see I get these lines on the blade. Maybe it's what I want, maybe it's not. But if you want to change the style of shading, this is called flat shading, where you see all the polygons. You can change it to smooth shading. Kind of doesn't look too good there. And you can easily fix that by adding what's called an edge split modifier. You may have to play around with the angle here. And it looks like around about 34 might be the sweet spot for that. Actually, it doesn't seem to change at all. I'm just going to leave it on flat shading for this one, which I quite like. Now this material here, I'm going to add in a material. If it doesn't show here, scroll up. This is going to be sword hilt, and I'm going to apply a goldy color. I'll turn it up to metallic, turn the specularity up, turn the roughness down so it's got that reflection on it. Very shiny material. The hand here, new sword handle, and I'm going to make it red. I am going to smooth shade this one so it looks more smooth there, and I'm going to turn the specularity on this down quite a bit, roughness up, and we're not worrying about textures or anything on this. This is just pure color at the moment. Okay, we'll probably get up to doing some textures later. This last one down the bottom, I'm going to also shade smooth, and I'm going to click on new. I'm going to call it sword pommel, and I'm going to add a subsurface color here, sorry, not a base color of gray. In fact, I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to remove that material and I'm going to use the sword blade texture or material, which I already have existing. You can see that goes down there and it makes it very reflective. In fact, it's almost too reflective. I might turn the roughness up on that just so it doesn't reflect as much. So I can reuse a material just by clicking here. I don't need to make a new one every time. So you should have 3 or 4 different materials depending on what you want there. Now we're going to add one more cool thing, which is like some gemstones across here. Gemstones are actually pretty hard to model if you don't understand some mathematical principles behind them and how you would make one. But thankfully we've got edit preferences, add-ons. And if you look through these add-ons, one of them is going to be extra objects, and there is somewhere, I saw it earlier today, diamonds. Let's just type in diamond. Oh wait, I think it's add mesh, extra objects. And when you add mesh extra objects, add mesh, here we go, diamonds. And I'm going to I'll add in a gem. Now that gem comes in like this. I will just quickly hide this bit here in the middle. H will hide something, Alt H will unhide it. So I'll just hide these things so we can see that gem. Add mesh, where have we got it? Diamonds, gem. So here's a gemstone in the middle. You can set, there's no presets there. You can set the number of segments on the gem, the radius of it, so how wide or how small it's going to be, and so on. You can create these style gemstones. I'm just going to delete this one. What did I just delete? I'm not sure. The light, I think. Add mesh dot, what's under extras, diamonds. We can add in a diamond, which is very similar to that. And there is also add mesh diamonds, a brilliant diamond, and this is different ways of cutting things up. This actually looks like it's a lot more complex. So I'm just going to add that gemstone at the bottom. Add mesh diamonds gem. Got a little gemstone. Now with this gemstone, I'm going to add a material to it. I'm going to call it gemstone. I'm going to make it green. Base color is going to be green. And I'm going to set its alpha to be a little bit lower than usual. I'm going to turn the specularity of it up, the metallicness of it up, the roughness of it down. It's going to be very shiny there. And a lot of these things are kind of really hard to explain what they do. In fact, I think one of these is, one of these here is a glass one, glass BSDF. Okay, so I'm actually going to put that glass one on there. The color is going to be green, and that'll give me a glass effect. Now I'm going to unhide everything else. Unhide everything. That is still selected, so I'm going to move that gemstone out. I'll click it here, move it out along the x-axis. I'm going to rotate it along the y-axis 90 degrees like that, and position it back in my sword like that. Scale it down a little bit. If I happen to scale it too far, I can pull it out a little bit. And I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate one and bring it over this way, and bring it up, GZ, and scale it down, GY, oops, GX, bring it into there. And I'm going to rotate it. If I go into the top down view, 7, so 7 will go into top down, and that will also click that there. I can rotate this without hitting an axis, and I can kind of line it up pretty good. Then I can hit Shift D, duplicate this again, hit Y, move it down to where it roughly intersects here, and rotate it the other way. Maybe position it so that it's in there, rotate it so it's kind of close to it. And then I've got a cool little sword with some gemstones in it. We did go over the try count that I said, which is 396, but that is because of these gemstones, which actually have a lot of tries on them. Each one has 64 tries, so 3 times 64, we're looking at like 180 or so. And if I go back 396, so our sword and stuff would have been about 210, which is what I said it was going to be at the start. So we've got a cool little sword here, and you might want to attempt to make some embellishments on it or create a different simple weapon using some of the techniques that we've looked at here. These are pretty simple techniques. I haven't done anything too complex yet. I will quickly show you why it's important not to always scale in object mode. So I'm just going to click over here. I'll just hide everything and add a mesh. It's going to be important for the next video, so just watch this. In fact, I'll show you in the next video because we're going to be looking at a tool called intrude and extrude.